Hey everyone, in this episode we're taking a look at the movie Brightburn. We're going to see if it met our expectations and talk about some of the gory deaths. This is episode 147 of the Reel-ists Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Oscar.
I'm Donnie.
And we have our producer Ruben here as well. Hello, he says, and welcome to this episode of Brightburn Review. It is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it, we'll go watch it or wait for digital and then listen to us, I guess. An alternative, I don't know. Get a future download. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about this movie, but just wanted to go ahead and remind everyone, if you can, rate us on iTunes. Let us know what you think about this podcast. You can go ahead and go on iTunes or YouTube, whichever you use more commonly, I guess, if you don't use iTunes. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. So we're going to go straight into this review. Donnie, let's start it off with what was your expectations and was it met? Was it underwhelmed, overwhelmed, whatever? Let's go with that.
Okay. I would say that my expectations were met and were slightly exceeded. I was always pretty interested in this film. I know a lot of people didn't like the concept of, little boy Superman and turning him evil. But I just thought it would be an interesting take on, such a classic story and iconic character like Superman. And just kind of a chance to have a little fun with it and to just kind of further perpetuate that what if kind of, scenario. So I thought it was really I was really open to it, and I really did like it. It was, yeah, I guess I'll just answer your question. It slightly exceeded my expectations.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Well, in case anyone is unaware of this movie, Brightburn is about what if a child from another world landed on Earth, but instead of becoming a hero to mankind, he proved to be something far more sinister, as Donnie has described not rip off, but a concept taken from the Superman origin story. And yes, this is this is not directed by Elizabeth Banks, but it stars Elizabeth Banks and David Denman, with I'm kind of saying in a sense like a debut for Jackson Dunn, since he is playing the lead character. Directed by David Yarovesky. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. A lot of marketing is that it's executive produced by James Gunn, so there goes some of that kind of high profile talent there. But yeah, so my thoughts for this one, to me, I had no problem with it taking the concept of Superman and doing a dark turn to it. That's been done in the comics already. That's something that's been explored. They've had him go he lands in Russia instead of the US, and what if he was evil Superman? They never really done evil as a kid, as a teenager. It's always been as an adult, something dramatic happens that changes him evil, so to speak.
Right.
But so I had no problem with it. It's something that I feel like has in the comic world has been done before, so it's kind of interesting to see it played out. The only thing that I felt like was to me a difficult problem grasping with this story was that the kid was just kind of it's two things. It's one, he either was being manipulated by his capsule that he was brought in, or he was just straight up always going to be evil or mean. And I don't know if that was just because he was, adopted and that truth really hurt him or anyway, but
I feel like it definitely seemed like the capsule that he landed on Earth in was definitely kind of syncing with him, because once he turned 12 years old, it started kind of talking to him, inner voice, kind of inner head kind of thing,
which was its own language, and he was able to slowly interpret it means to take over the world.
Yeah, so I feel like it
but I mean, I don't know, that's why it's kind of tough. It's if he was being manipulated by that capsule and then he was kind of sent here as a weapon, so to speak, that whoever sent him knew he was going to come and destroy the planet or rule over the planet, then that would have been an interesting take. But it kind of just felt like it was a mixture of wanting to be something that was a weapon at the same time with a boy with these powers that decides not to use it for good, which was more so because he just liked the power than feeling like he needed to return back the rude and cruel behavior he experienced, because he had a nice family, he had a loving family, and he wasn't necessarily like bullied too much at school from what we saw. It was very little of it. But
well, I think for me what worked too was the fact that he was a teenager, and
well, he was 12, but yeah,
that he was a preteen.
He was a preteen.
But that he was young, because I feel like, you know, you're still so impressionable and can still be swayed, you know, in either direction, I feel like. And it's not like when you're an adult and you know better and you have a more well-rounded kind of concept of right and wrong, a better moral compass. You know, I feel like when you're a teenager, you're still, you know, you're moody and you get irritated easily, and your emotions are out of whack. So it kind of was fitting that, you know, for this kid to be at this point in his age and going through puberty and going through those kind of changes, those earthly changes, but now coming into his own as a non-earthly being that has these powers. And it's right. Like it makes sense that it kind of became all consuming, sort of.
Yeah. And the thing that's, to me, that's why I feel like I wish they would have clarified better, because if it was that device, his little capsule, that was influencing him, then I would have liked to seen the struggle, like, because you can't tell us in the movie that he was a good boy up until him turning 12, and that's when he started to change. And I understand, like, puberty, and this is like maybe a dramatic version of going through puberty, but I feel like
exaggerated
right. I feel like he wasn't really exploring his options. He wasn't saying what's the right thing to do, what do I want to do. It was just more of like, I want this now, and I have powers, so I'm gonna hurt you. And like, it was like he was very cruel to just attack in all those ways.
And you know what? And he wasn't even, like, a lot of it wasn't even justifiable. Like, I understand some of the, for instance, I'll use an example. For instance, the little girl who didn't want to help him up after he fell. Well, you know, the only reason she was acting like that, in the trailer, it made it seem like she was just a mean girl.
Yeah.
But what had happened before that was that he, like, snuck into her room and he scared her. So she was kind of afraid by him. So by the time we fast forward to that scene, and the gym teacher's like, help him up, and she's like, no. Like, it wasn't because she was just being a little mean girl. It was because she was already freaked out by him. So it's like, and then, you know, I can understand that, but it's like it's like anyone that caused him this, like, the slightest inconvenience, he seemed to want to just cruelly punish.
Yeah.
Which was like,
and for his age to think of those ideas is another, like, what were you watching at home?
For real.
Like, were you watching some rated R movies? Like, what was your inspiration? Yeah, that was kind of tough to just be like, wow, a 12-year-old is doing all this. And, you know, maybe 18, I could be like, he's probably seen some stuff, but 12-year-old who was a good kid before, I would think wouldn't have those, like, and it's messed up ideas. I would think, like, maybe he'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to destroy your tires. And
it's not like he was, I mean, he grew up, like, on a farm with, like, nice parents. You know, it's not like he was exposed. At least they didn't show that right. He was exposed to all of this. You know,
he wasn't, like, on Twitter. Like, we weren't seeing
him, it wasn't
like,
social media. Yeah. He wasn't watching terrible movies, or he wasn't, like, hanging out with really bad inner city kids who are trying to get him to do drugs and drink. Like, we didn't see that. It seemed like he had, if anything, he kind of had a sort of sheltered life. Very loving, you know, tender mother, and a really good stand-up father. You know, for the most part. So,
and I can understand, like, those, like, concept drawings he was doing in his notebook of, like, his logo, maybe the B and the B put together, or him as he's not a hero, but, like, the idea that he came up with the costume and things like that. Yeah. That, to me, I can understand. Like, it's just his imagination coming into play. But the way he was just like, yeah, I'm gonna terrorize this waitress at her store and, like, just destroy everything. Mm-hmm. And, like, give her a good scare. That, to me, was just like, what have you seen? What have you been told in life? Yeah. But yeah, I will say what did work for me for the movie, though, was that suspense. And they were not afraid to hold back on the gory. They went full on of, if you want to see what happens if you get too close to glass when it shatters.
Yeah, they were.
And you get in your eye. That
way more gory than I thought it was gonna be. A lot more darker.
It was rated R, so I guess
And I guess I didn't really think about that, or that wasn't on my mind. I generally always forget about the rating of a film before I see it, unless it's like a hard R, unless it's like
Right.
something that I know is gonna have a ton of like nudity and language and stuff. But I didn't really think about it as being an R-rated film, but very fittingly so, because some of the scenes, the suspense was definitely there, the horror and the gore was there, and it made me kind of, close my eyes at some scenes and gasp and go, "Oh my God!" Like
a lot
of times. Like
"Oh
the
my
lady sitting
gosh."
next to me, we both were like, "Oh, like, oh, like, oh my God!" Like everyone was just on edge. So they got it right with the suspense. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that once he like accepted this life that he wanted of being evil and doing what he wants and no one can stop him. Yeah, he did not hold back. He was just like, he would either scare you and then tease you and just be like, "Hi," like he did with I'm assuming it's his aunt, but I don't know which side of the family it was from, whether it was from the mom's side or the dad's side, but his aunt, when he like scared her and then he goes at the door and it was just like, "Just wanted to talk to you. Can't tell the police about anything." Mm-hmm. And she was scared because she's like, "What is going on?" But yeah, a lot of things like that I feel like was just really well done. It got the suspense, it got the horror. Like, you knew that he was gonna kill them, and I think that was also what was contributing. It wasn't like is he gonna kill them? Like a curiosity factor. Like, you knew, the waitress was gonna die. You knew when he was chasing his uncle, that his uncle was gonna die. You just, like, those moments you just knew was gonna happen. I think that's probably what helped give off some satisfaction, that you saw the actual death and it wasn't just like suspense. Just kidding, next scene.
Yeah.
So,
or like, what happened to them? Did they,
Yeah, exactly.
Or like waiting to hear someone say, "Oh, we found her body," blah, blah, blah. Like, they showed it. They didn't shy away from it, which was nice. Well, I also really enjoyed the actor who played that Superman kid, because he really, once his
Jackson Dunn.
Once his he started realizing how powerful he was, his whole demeanor just changed, and he got really I'd say cocky in some sense. There were some scenes where he got very what's the word I'm looking for? Sassy, I guess, is the best way I could describe it.
He was very like, more so than what a preteen would be. And like, he really was assured of himself. Like, he knew what he was capable of, and so that led him to this kind of whole new confidence of,
which he wasn't wrong, I guess. Depending on how you put it, but like, because he was. I don't want to say he was superior, but he was super strong, and he could fly, and he was this incredible being.
Wasn't it this movie that a comment was made, like someone said a dialogue that we liked about like being superior? Wasn't it him that
he said something like
that he is superior?
That he's like, "I am superior." He said it when he was talking to his aunt in the counseling session.
Yes,
he was like so sure, like without a shadow of a doubt. Like, he said it with such confidence, and it made us laugh. And I was like, I'm trying to be that confident in life, right? But yeah, he was.
And when he got injured by the only thing that was able to hurt him was the capsule he came in, or the ship, whatever you want to call it. And even when he got hurt by that, he was shocked, but nothing like it threw him off. Like, he wasn't like, "Oh, maybe I'm not immortal," or anything like that. He kind of was just like, "I have a cut. Oh my gosh, I need to patch it up." But he was still able to keep his confidence. He was just like, "All right, I'm gonna stay away from this, I guess."
Yeah.
But yeah, so even like a moment of weakness, he didn't really like start to doubt himself or really be like, "Oh, maybe I should, keep myself at bay and not get too high and think I'm almighty and when something can easily hurt me." Very interesting. But yeah, this movie had a lot of those kinds of tone that it played with, of like, if you had powers and you were evil, this is what you probably would do. And I do liked the idea. I think the idea was very interesting to kind of run away with. And even at the end, when they tease like those other, I don't know if it was kids, but there's other people with powers,
these abilities,
and it was mimicking DC. Still, it was like saying there was like an Aquaman version and there was like a Wonder Woman version.
Yeah. I don't. this movie obviously didn't do well at the box office, so it's like, you know.
No, I can't think it came like 6.
But it would have been so cool had like this been a hit, and then they wanted to further develop that universe into like another, you know, the next movie would be like the teenage Wonder Woman and her just like wreaking havoc.
I don't know
on
how
her
far you would be able to go with that though.
And then when they all get older, they all team up and they're bad, like Justice League, but the dark side, the dark version.
Which is what I mean. It's been explored. They're in the comics. They're known as the Crime Syndicate.
Crime Syndicate.
Yeah, you have Ultraman, Superwoman, and Owlman. So they have a slight different name. They're not the same names. But yeah, I mean, it would have been. I think it would have been fun. I think it would have been a lot more confidence that it can work out if it was produced by DC. Oh, not DC, Warner Brothers. Because then that would have gave you that feeling like maybe they can somehow say like, oh, we're just setting up, you know, the evil Justice League to fight the real Justice League. Mm-hmm. But then that would have been a whole like It thing where it's like then you have to like get the kids to grow up and recast them as adults, and I mean it probably would have been a whole different mess.
Would have been like a logistical nightmare, I'm sure.
Right, but and then yeah, they like how are they going to just do teen versions of like the origins of being dark and, you know, evil, and then like just cast them as adults?
And what does that teach? What is that teaching our youth?
Right, complete going. It's like you can either be a good hero or you can be a good villain. We'll choose your path.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that would have been interesting to see. I mean, I think it would have worked more so like an anthology series on like Netflix or like just any streaming platform. I think that probably would have worked best than instead of like each movie is in theaters.
Right. I could see that. I could totally see that.
Maybe the rated R rating kind of limited like moms and dads letting
I feel like once you get an R rating, you're already shutting out a big demographic of moviegoers.
Right, and you can get a lot away with PG-13.
Yeah,
like how recent movies have shown. Like you can still like get right on that borderline. But I mean, I think this would have been an interesting idea had it run off with it. We would have been curious to see if they would have kept mimicking superheroes, because I feel like at that point then Warner Brothers can just be like, wait a minute, are you just like taking our ideas and just trying to like spin it differently to make it your own? Mm-hmm. But a one-off is not bad. I think a one-off was good, and they chose the most interesting one. I think someone with the power of Superman being evil would be much more interesting than someone that can breathe underwater and was evil.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Like, what are you gonna pull someone underwater and be like, I can talk underwater and I can breathe, and you can't?
I mean, or they would just drown them. Like
right.
that would be every.
It's all just drowning. Like it's all gonna be water related. All the ways you could die with water.
Or like they can inflict like pneumonia on them or something, or I don't know.
Like Wonder Woman would have just been like, what, you're gonna just choke someone and make them tell the truth in embarrassing fashion? Yeah. I guess.
I think this was, I think Superman was...
I could see Flash, maybe like super speed being like scary, maybe. Visual effects, it would have been maybe a little tough, but you kind of got that.
It's like in the blink of an eye, you're like, you have something like in your, like piercing your heart or something.
Oh my God.
Or like,
yeah.
In the blink of an eye, your arm was chopped off. Or, I don't know.
I could see. I mean, but then, yeah, I feel like Superman covers that a little bit, where you don't get you get more than just that. You get strength and all those crazy powers that he has.
So out of all the death scenes that we saw in this movie, which one was your favorite? I mean, I think the one, it's kind of tough. I feel like the one that I liked the most was the dad death, just because like that was to me the most Superman like death that you can really do. Mm-hmm. Like the other deaths were like, yeah, you can kind of say his powers were, you know, behind it, but like they didn't die too far different than like in the realm of a realistic possibility. Right. Like the lady at the, you know, at the restaurant, like the glass breaking did the most damage to her, and then he kind of just went for the kill. The car, kind of, you could just say that was like a car accident, so to speak. So, and then the mom just falling off. I mean, obviously no one would fall that high in the air, but... Right. That was kind of cool. I mean, it's not cool. I felt bad. Like, that was the mom and, you know...
But I think the dad, like, just getting laser beam like through his head,
through his
and
eyes,
like going right through, and fatality was practically what it was. So I think that was probably the most satisfying to me because one, you knew it was happening as soon as
he said, I want to take him camping or take him into the woods this weekend, you knew he was going to try to kill him. Because it kind of had been, the mom was like, we're going to love him regardless, he's our son. But he was on the other side like, this is not our son. He's not even freaking human, you know? So we like knew
he was quick.
This was kind of brewing this idea that we need to eradicate him pretty much. We need to handle this situation. So it wasn't a shock that when he tried to shoot him. And even for a split second, I felt really bad for Superman. I know he was like being evil throughout this film. Superboy, Brandon.
Brandon.
But I was like, dang, like this, you know, your dad just trying to shoot you, and it's like it's not like you died, and it's like you never knew who shot you or whatever. It's like he tried to shoot you. Obviously, you can't die by a bullet, but it's like the fact that your dad tried to kill you. And then later, the same thing happened with his mom.
I mean, it was like, that was like killing his humanity, and that was really like getting it easier for him to go full bad. But it was just like, I figured he had no care, like what he was doing. As you saw when his uncle died, when they brought it up to him, and of course he knew, and it wasn't like a shocker.
Yeah.
But he was like, I feel like you want me to cry. And I was just like, maybe this kid has no like soul in that sense. Like, he never got cut in his growing up, what they said. Like, he never got injured.
Yeah, never broken a bone, never bled.
So I guess he really didn't have that way to sympathize and be like, oh, I know what the pain feels like. Except for that one time that he got his hand cut in this movie, and that was like the first time he ever got injured. But it wasn't that bad, where he was just like, you know, I never want to walk out again. I want to stay indoors for the rest of my life. It was very just like I'll stay away from this because I know this can hurt me. Right. But what was your favorite kill?
I liked the female deputy who he killed in the house.
Oh my god.
That was just very brutal, and it was very almost animalistic, and it made me very uncomfortable. And I felt really I mean, I felt bad for all of them, but he was just unrelentless with her. Yeah, so that was like true. Dang, you know, but the dad, obviously the laser beams through the skull was pretty dope too. But yeah, so it's those two, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this movie, I felt like this movie for myself, my expectation was getting that dark and just going full with it. I don't think there was ever going to be this balance of like, should I be good or should I be evil? And then he chooses evil. Because even Superman never has that kind of conflict. To Superman, he was always just with, I want to do good. It wasn't like I need to do good, or, you know, that's being evil is wrong. He always had that like instinct. And yes, it did help that, you know, his parents were loving and were, you know, teaching him more lessons. But Superman never had that. So it's kind of the same thing. If they're going to do the opposite, this kid should not have that conflict. But I think it would have been nice drama to add if they did go with that route. But so my expectations were met exactly what I was getting with this movie. Yeah, I'm not surprised at those deaths the way they happened. So I feel like it was just right there. And the suspense and horror factor, I think, satisfied, because I was just like, I know he's going to kill them. And that's the thing. I think that's the one thing that gets me the most in any kind of horror film is when I know that they're going to die. And it's just a matter of how they die and when they die. Yeah. Like that, I think that's what always gets me in like that, you know, suspense, scared kind of mindset of like, oh, they're going to die in this scene. Okay. They're in the room alone. Okay. Where's the monster? You know, how are they going to die? Oh, okay. It hasn't happened yet. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, they didn't die. But then sometimes it's like, oh, there it is. Oh, and it's dead. Yeah. So it was kind of like that kind of thing. And that happened a lot with this movie. Like every time the character was by themselves, you knew they were going to be tortured, killed, or scared by Brandon. So I was always like, God dang, it's like round 2. All right, round 3. Oh gosh,
here we go again.
Right, but yeah, I mean that's kind of just the way this movie was wanting to go, and it did not hold back. But yeah, I will mention this just in case. Was the death also your favorite scene, or did you also like something else in the movie?
No, it wasn't my favorite scene. I think I just really liked this. I just really liked the kind of seeing the unraveling of this kid, and specifically like with his physical abilities. Like I liked the scene when he tried to put his hand in the lawnmower, and it just like completely bent the blade, and he was unharmed. And or I liked the scene when his dad was telling him to like go upstairs, and they were kind of getting physical, and he like, you know, it looked like he just put his arm up, but he like pushed his dad back all into this like the china cabinet glass and shattered everywhere. Like just seeing him, his super abilities kind of be exposed was like entertaining to watch. Or even in that when he was chewing on the fork and it bent, and he even was a little like shook
mindless.
by it.
Yeah, he was just like,
oh my god, you know. Yeah, I liked those scenes.
Okay. I would say that the death scenes are probably more so in my favorite interest. It was tough to really like the mom scenes just because I felt like at some point the mom was intentionally like trying to, you know, overlook everything that's happening and just be like, no, like that's not my son. Like that's not my son. It's like everything is like pointing to your son, and you're just like continuing with the he's our son.
I mean, but that's just like the unconditional love of a mother. I like that they portrayed that.
And I get that, but I feel like
do you though?
I do. I do, but I feel like when it's obvious, and I mean that's the tough thing. It's like from us, we're seeing the movie, we're seeing all sides of it. It doesn't help the character out. I feel like it makes the character look more bad that they're not acknowledging as the story's progressing. They're just like, we need them to get caught up to speed. I mean, eventually she does, if a little too late, maybe in some cases. Because
even if they got caught up to speed earlier on, I don't know that would have made much of a difference in that final outcome.
The only thing I could think of was she probably would have told the dad about like, hey, get something from the ship because that can hurt him, and try to use that. But maybe small thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the death scenes were probably more of the personal taste, just because it's like at that point that is officially the superhero being evil. It's like what you won't see Superman do in that sense, because Superman, well, one, they're always going to keep the rating PG-13. They're never going to just go straight up R. And even when they did rated R for like Batman v Superman, you never saw any kind of crazy deaths like that. I think the craziest that they did was like Superman burning the people next to Batman in that dream sequence in half. I think that was like the darkest that they ever had Superman do in film. So something that you'd be like, okay, and that's what Superman would do if he could let loose. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think those are probably my most interesting scenes. But with all that being said, what is your real score for Brightburn?
I am going to give it a 3 out of 5. Yeah, I really did. It was just an entertaining, fun film. And the suspense was there, the horror was there. The character, the parents, to me, they were pretty likable. And I really liked that. I feel like they spoke like the dialogue that was written for them, and even in the scenes when they were arguing or talking about Brandon, I felt like that was real. Like that's real dialogue that would be used. It wasn't movie dialogue. And even like the amount of cursing that they did, or just the things that they said, it was, it came off very natural. So I really liked them, and I liked their characters. And unfortunately, they didn't last. They didn't last long, but they lasted, pretty long, but they ultimately died. But and Brandon was definitely just like someone he just put so much fear into me. This little 12-year-old boy, but man, he could really do some damage. So. And I liked the progression of the story, and I mean there are a lot of things that were pretty predictable. That whole little whistling game that he had with his mom, that was like right at the front of the film, and you knew it was going to loop back to that kind of being, in the end of the film, but in a darker, more setting. So that was like, and you knew all these people were going to die, and when the dad said, let me take Brandon to the woods, you knew he was going to try to kill him. You knew that wasn't going to work, and then he was going to ultimately die. So things it wasn't like they were breaking new ground or anything, but yeah, I really did just enjoy it. And it was, it's what I was hoping to get. And I got a little more than what I was hoping to get. So for that, I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay. You're going to be a little bit nicer than I am. I'm going to give this one just a 2.5 out of 5. Just a slight little below. Only because I felt like what this movie really was missing out on was a conflicting drama that made sense for this kid being evil. And, it wasn't even like a theme of, this is preteens in an exaggerated form. This was just like straight up a kid who, again, that's the confusing part, whether was he being kind of controlled by the capsule that he came from, or was this really making his own decisions based off how he's viewing life? But if it is the...
It had to have been the capsule.
It has to. But if it was but it's like they didn't give enough to really justify. Because then at that point you would have been like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. He's not really being himself. Where's the struggle of him trying to fight that? Or maybe, maybe he does lose at some point, try to control that.
Yeah, it was just all consuming. Like it just... There wasn't a struggle. There wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to fight it. It's winning though. It was just like, okay.
Exactly. So I would say that that's why I say like that's what this movie was missing, that conflicting drama. The characters themselves, I think, were entertaining. I think the mom and dad, as you said, kind of felt like a good mom and dad in this scenario. The kids around him felt kind of authentic to the degree of that's what you would expect, where a lot of teasing, a lot of, joking around, the preteen, so you're not getting like puberty situations or someone trying to feel like they're man or all that kind of stuff. So I think it was kind of that balance for that, but I feel like the story is just where it falters. And despite being a Superman ripoff, I feel like this just was more of like, let's just go with a way to make something out of an already existing idea, which has been, something Hollywood is very familiar with. Hollywood loves to,
that's all Hollywood does.
Right.
Now.
All Hollywood loves to take existing things, buying, IPs and remaking them and rebooting them. But yeah, I feel like this one probably just was missing a lot of things that really make this not just a Superman ripoff, but its own story as well. Because I feel like the one thing that I probably would see this again would be just the deaths. I don't know if I would need to see the build-ups and all those in-betweens. Mm-hmm. I think just seeing the deaths probably what I would go back to see again.
Gosh, you're so evil.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so, I mean, if anything, it definitely made me appreciate Superman, I guess. Like, maybe, be like, thank goodness Superman is good.
Yeah, there you go. At least you walked away with something
right?
Hopeful and optimistic.
Everyone should go watch Man of Steel. Get the good side version. But yeah, so... Yeah, 2.5 is what I'm going to give it. I wanted this to probably be something that was more about, like, it makes sense why this kid went bad, but it was just more of, okay, this kid's just 180 and just killing people, right? Anyone that came across... Yeah, he almost, like, had a list, like, of, these are the people that I'm going to kill, and we were just going...
Cersei Lannister.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were just following along the list of who he's going to kill, with his parents being... people that weren't on the list, but because they try to kill him, he was like off with their heads essentially. So that's gonna be my score for this film.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, so hopefully, listeners, you saw this movie and you can let us know what you thought about it, what you liked, what you didn't like about it. This has definitely been an interesting movie. I think this is probably like the first in a while that we had separate, slightly different scores. We're on the same path for a while there.
Yeah.
So. Let us know, everyone, what you think on this, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Thank you again for tuning in to one of these final episodes for the Reel-ists Podcast. But until the next episode, because there's another one.
Yeah, just wait for it.
Just wait. Like 5, 4. Just kidding. Thank you, everyone.